Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to start Unit 1, Notes 1 today, expressions and equations. So an algebraic expression consists of one or more numbers and variables along with one or more arithmetic or arithmetic operations. So something as simple as 2x, maybe you're looking at negative 14y z, and then maybe a 2x plus 7. Those are all expressions. Now, an algebraic equation is a mathematical sentence stating that two mathematical expressions are equal. So an equation has equal signs. So that would be saying 2x plus 7 equals 25. There, this is something that we can solve for x. If it doesn't have an equal sign, we aren't going to solve for x, so we aren't going to have x equals. Now we might evaluate and come to a singular answer with a number, especially when we do things like order of operations. And this, we look at parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Okay, we also can think of, instead of just parentheses, we can think of grouping symbols such as like parentheses, brackets, braces, absolute value bars, radical signs, and fraction bars. Those are all type of grouping symbols. Now, I like to think of it more of like a triangle here because multiplication and division are done at the same step. It's multiplication or division. So you're working left to right. Okay, same thing when you think of addition and subtraction. It's an or, it's left to right. So you might do subtraction before you do addition. You might do division before you do multiplication. It just depends on which one comes first, left to right. Okay, so order of operations here. So we're going to start with parentheses. In this first parentheses, there's just a 5, so we don't have anything we can do with that. But we can take 2 times 5 and get our 10. Then we're going to take 4 plus 3 to give us 7. And now we have no exponents, so we're going to go multiplication division. And we just have one multiplication here. And now our last step is to add these two. Okay, so if we look at this next one, we have two sets of grouping symbols. We have brackets. Those are the ones on the end here. And we have parentheses. So with multiple grouping symbols, you always do the one that's on the most inside first. So we're going to go ahead and take 30 and divide it by 6. And we get 5. And now we can deal with this. Now, some of you might feel like, oh, I'm going to distribute that too. And unless there's a variable inside your grouping symbol, you don't want to distribute it in. You can, it's just more likely to give you an incorrect answer. So it's better to wait and multiply it at the last. All right, so then here we just have some where we have to plug in those values. So instead of x, I'm going to replace it with a 3. 4 goes in for y. And then we have a divide by 12. Don't lose that divide by 12. It's easy to lose something like that. Okay, order of operations, we're going to start inside. So we get 3 times 12. Multiplication is going to come first here because it's left. So we get 36. Divide by 12, and we end up with 30. This should be all review for you guys. Because Algebra 2 is really just taking Algebra 1, and we're just cranking it up a step. Okay, 2, and then I'm going to put in parentheses my 12 and my 8 minus my 3. That one I don't really have to put in parentheses, but we do the first two for our order of operations. All right, so now we're going to multiply all of those things together first. And when you multiply all of those together, you get 192. And we can do our 3 squared at the same time, and that gives us 9. 192, and we're going to subtract 3, so we get 189. Divide by 9, and 9 goes in there 21 times. All right, so then we come to things like these type of expressions. And so these type, we have variables in there, but there's no equal sign. So I'm not solving for these, I'm just simplifying. So I'm combining like terms, distributing anything I might need to, etc. So the first thing I'm going to do is I look inside this set of parentheses and I don't have any like terms in there. Reminder, a like term is something that has the same variable to the same exponent, and we don't have that here. So that means I can distribute in my 3. So I'm going to rewrite my negative 10x, and then 3 times 4x squared. We're just going to multiply the 3 and the 4, and we leave the exponent alone. 3 times 2x gives me a 6x, and 3 times a negative 2 gives me a negative 6. Once I've distributed, those parentheses go away. Now I'm looking for like terms. I want to start with the highest exponent. So I have a positive 12x squared and a positive 4x squared. So you're going to combine the coefficients, those big numbers, and you're going to leave the exponents or those powers alone. Next, I have a negative 10x and a positive 6x. So it gives me a negative 4x. And then the last thing I have is a negative 6. This is my solution. There are no more like terms, and there was no equal sign, so I don't need to have an x equals. All right, so if I look at my next problem here, we're going to distribute in that 2 because I can't do anything inside the parentheses, so I get 4x minus 1. Now this next one is a minus 4, so I'm going to think of this as a negative 4 that I'm distributing in. So I get negative 12x and negative 1. Okay, and go ahead and look for like terms. I have 4x and a negative 12x. So 4 plus negative 12 gives me a negative 8x. And then I have a negative 1 and a negative 4, and that gives me a negative 5. Okay, so simplifying. We've looked at multiple different things to do with expressions. Okay, so now let's go ahead and tackle a word problem. So in this word problem, it says the Pyramid Arena in Memphis, Tennessee is the 3rd largest pyramid in the world. The area of its base is 360,000 square feet, and it's 321 feet high. The formula for the volume of the pyramid is volume equals 1/3 base times height, where capital B represents the area of the base and H is the height. Find the volume of the pyramid. So I'm going to plug in to those things to find for my volume. So I have 1/3 times capital B, and that represents the area of the base. And they tell me area of base is 360,000. So I'm going to plug that in. Okay, and then its height, H is height, and it says that it's 321 feet high. So times 321. So go ahead and grab those calculators, and you're just going to feel free to type that in. For 1/3, I don't want you to put in 0.3. 1/3 is 0.3 repeating. So you can go ahead and just put that in parentheses and leave that as a fraction. All right, did you get your volume out of that yet? Whoops, jumped ahead. Volume, we should end up with 38,520,000. And then this is going to be feet cubed. Volume is cubed. Ooh, come on, write that. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and look at a geometry problem. It says find the perimeter of the triangle if A equals 9 and B equals 10. Now remember, perimeter is going to be all the sides added up. Perimeter is all the way around the triangle. So 2A, so 2 times 9. This side is going to be 18. 5A plus 1. So 5 times 9 plus 1. We're going to multiply first, and we get 45 plus 1. So that gives us a length of 46. And then 0.5b squared. So 0.5 times 10 squared. Order of operations says I do exponents first. So 10 squared gives me 100. So 0.5 times 100. And 0.5 is the same thing as a half. Half of 100 is 50. I'm going to write that there. All right, perimeter says I would just add them. So 18 plus 46 plus 50. And I could throw an equal sign on there because I'm just going to combine those. And adding those gives me 114. All right, so not only do we solve those things, sometimes you have to look at verbal expressions, so written ones, and you have to change it into an algebraic one. So words like added to, increased by, more than, some, addition to, those represent plus. So 5 increased by a number would be like 5 plus x. Subtracted from, decreased by, less than, difference, take away from, that's going to give us a subtraction. Now, when it says less than, ooh, got a little jumpy there. When it says less than, it means that this previous thing comes after this part here. So this is going to be x minus 4. That's 4 less than a number. Multiplied by, product, times, 1/3 of, 1/2 of, 1/4 of, twice. This is all multiplication. Now remember, we don't really like to use an x for multiplication very often because we use x for a variable. So it says 5 times the sum of a number of 9 and a number. Now times the sum. Now that's two different operations. Times means multiplication and sum means the answer to an addition problem. So what this is 5 parentheses. Now in my parentheses is where I'm going to put the sum. And it says of 9 and a number. You're going to see that a pop up here, either in homework. I'm pretty sure it shows up on your quiz too. 5 times the sum. So we should have those parentheses. Now, if it doesn't say times the sum, then we don't need to put the parentheses. Quotient divided by, this is going to be division. So here we see twice the sum of a number and 8 divided by 3. Okay, so this has got multiple pieces to it. So twice means we're going to times. And it says the sum, so twice the sum tells me parentheses, and in my parentheses I'm going to add a number and 8 divided by 3. So I'm going to use actually a fraction bar for that one to represent my division. And then is the same as, is equal to, that's equals. The length of a rectangle is twice the width. Is where we find our equals. So L equals 2W. All right, so let's go ahead and solve a few equations here. So we're throwing a lot into this one unit, but a lot of it is just review. So we're going to start off, we have 2 times p, so we're going to do the opposite, divide by p, 2. So p equals 7. Now here in b, I see a lot of variables, but they're all on the same side of my equal sign. So I'm going to combine all of these because they're on the same side. So 7 minus 3 gives me a 4. 4 plus 2 is 6, and then minus 1a gives me 5a equals 16. Now I have, just like we did in part A, a variable and a number that are being multiplied. So I'm going to divide by 5 to cancel, and a equals, and we get 3.2 here, and that is just fine. Have a decimal. Don't be scared of decimals. All right, so if I look here and see, my equal sign is there. So I'm going to start off with distributing. So we have 27 equals, I get, oh, I'm probably going to run out of room here, negative 9y, and negative 9 times 5 gives me negative 45. 6 times y, so 6y, oh, I'm not going to, all right. And 6 times 8 gives me a 48, sorry. So now I'm going to, because they're all on the same side of the equal sign, I'm going to look for like terms to combine. So I have negative 9 and a positive 6. So that gives me a negative 3y. And I have negative 45 and a positive 48. So that gives me a positive 3. Whew, now we're down to a 2-step equation. Subtract 3 to both sides, and we get 24 equals negative 3y. And we're going to go ahead and divide by negative 3 on both sides. So y equals negative 8. Now with equations, when we get down to a y equals a equals p equals, you can take that solution and plug it back in for the variable and solve it and see if you get the equation correct. All right, last one. It's a word problem, but it's not too difficult. Carl wants to replace the 5 windows in his bedrooms of his 2-story house. His neighbor has agreed to help install them for $250. If Carl has budgeted $1,000 for the total cost of replacing the windows, what's the maximum amount he can spend on each window? Write an equation, so I have to have an equal sign, and use that to solve. So he only has $1,000 set aside. So we have whatever our equation is going to be equal to $1,000. Now, his neighbor is going to help install them for $250. That's a flat fee. He's just paying straight out. Ooh. Okay, and then he has 5 windows. So 250 plus 5W equals 1,000 is where we're sitting at. So I'm going to minus my 250. So we end up with 5W equals 750. And go ahead and divide both sides by 5. So that leaves him a budget of $150 for each window. And let me tell you, nowadays that's not a lot for a window. All right, go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, finish up there. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, make sure you can rewind and rewatch things or pause them to get them written down. See ya.